Good morning, PBF. It's Kyle here, and I'm with a friend from Southern California, a brother down there. His name is Brett McCracken. I'm so excited to share him and a little bit of his ministry with you. Brett is a senior editor at the Gospel Coalition. He's written books like Hipster Christianity, When Church and Cool Collide. He's written books like Gray Matters. Also, a book that I've cherished for the last few years called Uncomfortable. It's a book on the awkward and essential challenge of Christian community. So as your community life pastor, this is a book that I would highly recommend. And then Brett is also getting ready to release in February a book that I really wish was getting released closer to September, because it's so appropriate. It's called The Wisdom Pyramid. Welcome, Brett. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and about your work at the Gospel Coalition?
Yeah, so I work for the Gospel Coalition. For those who aren't familiar with that, primarily it's a website where I think we're like in the top 10 of the largest Christian websites in the world. We reach 40 million or so readers every year across the world, and we're essentially a resource for the church. We want to be a support to the local church, not a replacement for the local church, but a support. My kind of area of focus as a writer maybe is arts and culture type content. So I typically will write, reviews of movies, kind of articles about music, but I also write about the church quite a bit. So the books that I've written kind of reflect my interests. So it's both the church, the local church is a passion of mine, but also culture and just how we as Christians interact with culture, understand it, read the culture and the theological ideas that are percolating beneath the surface of secular culture.
My first question for you this morning is just, how do you think the church is doing? And if you could give the Church of Christ some advice, if you could write an epilogue to Uncomfortable, what are some ways that you want to challenge the church today?
First of all, I would say I've been impressed and encouraged by how resilient the church has been in this year. I mean, it's been a totally crazy year, unpredictable, both the pandemic and the racial unrest in our country, and who knows what else will come. But the church, for the most part, I think has done a good job just adapting and being nimble and trying to figure out how to continue serving God's people, how to continue facilitating community. One good thing that I think we're realizing, as great as technology is, it's not in any way a sufficient replacement for the physical gathered local church body. So I know for myself, Zoom meetings and virtual church has only made me long more deeply for the gathered church. And I hope and pray that for a lot of Christians who stick with church through this season, it'll just make them even more excited and not take for granted anymore the gift and the beauty of the local church.
As someone who curates media as a large part of your job, how do we as Christians guard our hearts? I find myself kind of just gorging myself on news, a lot of bad news, just constantly scrolling through things that don't encourage my soul.
Yeah.
Could you give us a really simple explanation of what the Wisdom Pyramid is? How is it structured? What does it look like? Why did you call it a pyramid?
If you've ever seen the food pyramid, it's kind of inspired by that. So a lot of us of my generation grew up in like elementary school. We would be taught the food pyramid, which was the guide to a healthy diet. So the bottom of the food pyramid, it used to be like the bread group, and then there's like the vegetable group and the fruit group and the meat group and so on and so forth. And the top of the food pyramid, meaning the least important, is like the dessert category, the fats, oils, and sweets. I was giving a conference presentation. They asked me to speak about fake news and the kind of post-truth world that we're living in. And I had a designer friend of mine help me create the Wisdom Pyramid as like a visual aid for my presentation. So that's where it started. And essentially, I took the same concept, like there's little groups. Instead of food groups, it's like knowledge groups, like areas where we could glean potentially truth. So the base layer of the wisdom pyramid, as you would expect being a Christian, is the Bible. So I'm arguing that God's word to us is it's the only infallible source of truth in existence. So therefore, it needs to occupy the most important section of our wisdom pyramid. And I won't go through each of the categories. I have a category for the church. The local church is an important source of truth for us. Nature, so God's creation, declares, the heavens declare the glory of God, says Psalm 19. Like there's wisdom to be gained just by being outside and paying attention. And so I talk about that in that chapter. There's a category for beauty, and at the very top, so the least important, the dessert category that you should be most cautious about in tempering your diet is social media and the internet. So when people saw that graphic of the original Wisdom Pyramid at that conference, they immediately, like, people were like got their cell phones out and were taking pictures and sharing it on social media. Ironically, it kind of went viral on social media. But I think everyone intuitively sees that and recognizes that we flipped it, right? Like, most of us have actually put social media on the bottom of our wisdom pyramids, and we're spending way more time on the internet than we should, and it's making us very unwise. So that's what it is, and that's the gist of it. And it's really a guide for helping people just reorient their intakes in this very crowded environment of information, and to have a healthier balanced diet that's conducive to wisdom, which is what I think we need. The kind of tagline I'm using for the book is, we don't need more information, we need more wisdom.
Well, thank you so much, Brett. Your work is really important for the church. You're constantly putting out things that are relevant for the church to chew on here and now. So church, I'd encourage you, grab one of Brett's books or multiple of them and pre-order the Wisdom Pyramid. It comes out in February, but this is a book that I think every Christian needs right now. We need to know how to curate what we're ingesting. And so, Brett, I'm so thankful for the time that you've given us. And just praying blessings over you, your work at the Gospel Coalition, Southlands Brea, and your family, your newborn. So thank you for spending so much time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kyle. Blessings to you.